some of the human design types don't have that sacral center. They don't have it colored in. So they don't have access to the same amount of life force energy that maybe the generator or the manifesting generator have. So that's reflectors, projectors, and manifestors. So they can oftentimes feel like they are just different or they're tired.
Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to Spiritually Fly. I'm your host and your guide, Faith Hunter. By listening or watching this podcast, you are taking steps to rebuild your life, learn ways to courageously live out your dreams, or maybe you're here to unlock your potential. So let's drop into the power of self-healing and step into a place of self-care. Along the way, I'll provide you with science-based yet spiritually grounded practices that will enhance your life and elevate your soul. Hello, beautiful people. This is Faith Hunter, and welcome to episode number 18 of the Spiritually Fly podcast. Today, we are going to be connecting with an amazing woman who I discovered on social media. We connected on social media. And then several years ago, she reached out to me and said, "Hey, I'm in Washington, D.C. doing a breathwork workshop. Would you like to come?" And I said, yes. And I ended up bringing a few of my staff with me, and it was an amazing experience. But today, we are going to discuss human design. I want to share a little bit about this amazing woman so that you have an idea and have like a feeling of this energy that we're about to embark upon. Her name is Gwen Dittmar, and I'm just going to read a couple of things about her because I don't want to miss anything. Gwen realized what she was looking for was already within her. After years of seeking, reading, learning, healing, and coaching, Gwen realized what she was looking for was already within her. Gwen realized energy was not hers, surrendered to her wholeness, and started sharing what she wished to see in the world, awakening to the creator within. Since then, Gwen brings 17 years of working in research, both on the academia level as well as pharmaceutical and small biotech startups. 12 years of coaching, trauma healing, wellness, sobriety, parenting, executive leadership, corporate elevation, entrepreneurial expansion, and soul medicine, as well as her own intuitive, clairvoyant, and clairsentient gifts to her virtual and in person sessions. Currently, Gwen integrates layers of consciousness and healing to her coaching, energy work, breath work, which I experience, shamanic tools, as well as drawing upon her own personal healing journey into the practical and holistic facilitation. Gwen has a master's in spiritual psychology, is an Usui Reiki Master, a certified teacher of the David Elliott Breathwork, and is currently mentoring in shamanism. And the last beautiful thing is that Gwen is a mother of 2 children. All right, Spiritually Fi family, let's welcome Gwen Dittmar. Hello, Gwen. How are
I'm
you?
doing well, Faith. How are you? It's great to see you.
I'm wonderful. I'm wonderful. Great to see you too. I am like really excited to talk to you today for many reasons. But before I ask you my main question that I ask everyone, the thing I do want to share with both you and people that watch as well as listen to the podcast is that you and I met many years ago in Washington, D.C. in person. But we originally met, I guess, online, like it via social media?
I
Was that the
think
way
it
that
was
we
on
originally?
social media. Yes.
I think it was. And you sweetly invited myself and some other members of my team. And we're like, come to my breathwork session, And I was like, oh, okay, I'll definitely do that.
And so to kind of start this conversation off, I have to also let you know that I had taken other breathwork sessions before, and those breathwork practices were with men. I mean, I don't have anything against men, but when I took your session, I felt so loved and held and nurtured and just absolutely sweetly cradled and safe.
Mm,
I think that was the biggest piece, is that I felt safe to just like release. And every other person, all the other members of my team at the time, they had the exact same experience. And so I just want to say thank you for not only holding that space for me, but holding that space for my team and then all of the other individuals in the space, because I having you in DC at that moment, it was definitely something relatively new to the DC community. There were not a lot of breathwork teachers there. And then the last thing I want to add, before I ask the question, is that because of what you shared and how you held the space, I decided, and actually, I shouldn't say I decided, one of my team members was like, you should do this, Faith,
mm,
because this is how you hold space for people when you teach yoga and meditation. And you already teach us, you know, one method or some methods of breath work during our meditation practices that help. But the way that Gwen kind of created this beautiful, nurturing experience, she's like, "You would do great at that." And so I was like, "Okay, whatever." And so I kind of like put it on the back burner for a while, and then I started teaching. And so yeah, so now I teach these really sweet, mo very similar and very meaning in the energetics of the way that
yeah.
you offered up your practice, for us in DC. So I wanted to say
Thank
thank
you
you.
so much. That means a lot. And I actually felt that moment when you and your team showed up, just very honored, very, very blessed that somebody of, your expertise and your success was willing to be a participant and also to do it with your team. I was really
Mhm.
moved by that. I thought, wow, here's somebody who's, a leader and is open to having a vulnerable experience with her team. So I was really motivated and inspired by that. And it was very special. And I thought, I better have my game better be on with this one in DC with Faith and her team coming. And it was a really lovely, I still remember that particular breath work. There were a couple of
Yeah.
clients that I had worked with for several years that were present.
Mm.
Um, I had a couple of breathwork clients, coaching clients. That was a very, very special moment. That was one of my bigger
Wow.
events before the pandemic happened. So thank you for
Yeah,
making space for
yeah.
you. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. So, the question that I ask everyone when we first get on is, how does God speak to you or through you?
Mm, what a beautiful question. I definitely feel the presence of God and hear through when I look at the sky, when I look at the clouds, when I look at sunrises and sunsets, when I look at trees and the way that they move and that they dance and the wind and the light behind them. um, I think also God speaks to me through people. um,
Mhm.
I'm a very proud member of 12 step of AA, and I was raised Catholic and it never fully landed for me, never resonated. And one of the biggest jokes is my mom would always say that I would ask lots and lots of questions and I would challenge everything
Mm.
that. that we would hear at church and in the pew. And one of her favorite questions that I asked was one time the priest was talking about being a good father and being a good husband. And I looked at my mom and I said, but Catholic priests aren't allowed to get married and have children. So how does he know how to be a good father and a good husband? And usually her answer to me was, that's a great question. I don't know how to answer it. And you can find the answer when you turn 18 and go explore your own, connection with God. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I've had many different iterations of how I've connected with God, through my younger 20s. I definitely explored a lot of spirituality and consciousness, yoga, meditation. I did do chanting, Buddhist chanting for a while.
Wow.
Um, I did
Mm.
Kundalini for a while.
Wow. Okay.
And then, I kind of shifted into, I guess, more of a spiritual. And then, as I got sober, I had a huge awareness of, I think up until that point, I had been hesitant to use the word God. And then it
Mm.
really landed for me because it was still somewhat associated with the God that I was taught as a Catholic schoolgirl. Um,
Yeah.
and so now I love the word God. I love relationship with God. And truly, without God, I mean, nothing is present in my life. And, I've definitely spent many years putting my knees on the ground first thing in the morning and just
Mm.
thanking God for being alive, being healthy, having two healthy children, having work that I love that I do,
Yeah.
and being sober, being able to be fully present for everything, even the things that I don't like.
Mm.
Yeah. And that's, I would say, yeah, God really speaks to me through nature and through people. Um, yeah. And I would say,
Thank you for
too, just
sharing that.
sometimes there's these just movements of energy through me that I'm like
Mm.
knocked down because it just feels such an overpowering presence of God. I don't know if you've ever had
Wow.
that, but
Yeah, yeah. I've had that. I've had that, and it's really interesting because the one of the reasons why I wanted to chat with you today and to be taught is about human design. And I definitely feel because you're an amazing expert as well as, breath work and many, many other things. But understanding who you are and how you show up in this world can be challenging for us. I mean, I've been knocked down, twisted up, turned around so many times. And when I come out of that, yeah, I'm a little more informed. I feel like I've gained some lessons, but then there's always sometimes this sense of insecurity and fear. And when I learned a little bit, I don't know a lot. I don't know a lot. But when I learned a little bit about human design, I was like, oh, maybe this is something that's going to assist me in a much more broader way than, say, astrology or doing my journaling or like other practices. I feel like it's an additional spiritual practice or tool that we have, but it takes it from a different approach. So, can you explain a little bit about human design for
yeah.
everybody?
And I think what I love about human design is it does blend a bunch of different modalities. So it was downloaded by Ra Uruhu, he had a mystical experience in Ibiza, Spain, and just started to download and receive how all of these different ancient philosophies were connected. So the Hindu, the chakras, the Kabbalah tree of life, the Chinese
Mhm.
hexagram, the I Ching, and quantum physics, and then also Vedic astrology. And so, what it looks like when you see human design is it looks like a person. So, it's your body chart.
Mhm.
And in that body chart, there's 9 different energy centers. And so in these energy centers, they can be colored in or they can be white, the color white, meaning that whatever color they have, it doesn't necessarily matter the color. It's a lot more the program that you use to download somebody's human design chart. But the centers all carry energy. And then there's what's called gates in all of the centers, and all the little numbers are called the gates. And all the gates
Wow.
are the same in everybody's chart, but those are all the Chinese, the hexagram, the I Ching. And so each of the gates carries an energy, and then sometimes 2 of the gates will come together to form one long line connecting each of the centers. And so those centers are called channels. So there's different energy centers, and then there's gates that carry particular energy for who you are, and then there's channels that carry energy. There's also, it shows the planets on either side and what gates they were in on the specific day and time you were born. And then what's also really interesting about human design is it takes into consideration both your conscious self and also your unconscious self. So the unconscious self in this philosophy is believed to come in 88 days before you're born, and the conscious
Oh.
self comes in when you're born. So everything that you see in your chart that's in the color black. So whether it's the
Oh.
planets down on one side, or if it's one of these gates that's colored in, or if it's one of the channels that's colored in, that's going to be something that's more conscious to you, something that you probably know or see about yourself. And then when there's things that are in red, those are going to be the more unconscious parts. So the things that dropped in, those 88 days before you were born, that's going to carry a lot of things that maybe other people see about you, but that you may not as clearly see about yourself. However, being able to become aware of your particular energy, where you have, strength, or where you carry definition,
Yeah.
some of the natural tendencies that you have in the gates and in the channels and like in these planets, you can really amplify both your strengths and your weaknesses. You can really understand where you're vulnerable, where you maybe have shadow, where you have strengths, and just natural tendency, natural propensity to be able to do certain things. So, for me, as I was a little kid and I was always challenging and questioning and like pushing, because I'm a manifester, and that energy type is really here to like push something new forward, to initiate something new,
Yeah.
to ignite.
And what are the different types? Because you mentioned manifestor. I know manifestor, generator. Okay, I'll let the experts
No,
say
yeah.
those
So
things.
you got it. So it's the So I always say the reflector is about 1% of the population. They tend to be a more rare type. They're going to have all open centers, which is what's different about them. They're not going to have
Mm.
any of those energy centers defined. And then the manifestors are about 7% of the population. Projectors are about 20% of the population, and then generators are about 35%. And then there was a new type of being that came into evolution that combined both the manifester and the generator and made it into the manifesting generator. So, what I love also about human design is that it takes into consideration humans and our evolution, and that we're not always the
Mm.
same. So that's why there's 9 different centers, is because there have been split in our energy centers, moving just from the 7 chakras into these 9 centers, where as we evolved, our heart turned into 2 different centers. So that's why when you're looking at somebody's chart, you'll see they have the head, right, which connects you to source, where you download and you kind of feel a pressure of like energy or inspiration opening that can come in. But you can also feel pressure, right, if you're not in the most aligned
Mm.
space. And then it comes down
Yep.
into the ajna, which is a little bit different than the third eye chakra. It has a lot to do with actual thinking. So it's like the inspiration comes down through the head, and then it turns into thinking, and then it comes down into the throat. And then we have the heart split into two different things. So in someone's chart, you'll see something in the middle that what we would think would be the heart chakra, but that's actually called
Chakra.
your G
Right.
center. And your G center is
Okay.
really like your center of identity, of your value, your worthiness, your lovability. It's like who you are. And then it's split out. And because humans evolved into then also having heart, that was this willpower, dedication, determination, discipline type of energy center. So there's two different
Mm.
centers. And then you move down, and there's your sacral, which is similar. But like you as a generative type, you have a defined sacral. So whenever you hear somebody say that they have a defined center in human design, it just means that it has a color in it, and that it's closed with that defined energy, and that you have access to that sacral energy all the time. It never goes away for you having that as a defined energy center. So you probably have a lot of energy. You have access to a lot of energy. The interesting thing, though, as a generator, is that you really need to be
Right.
lit up by what you're doing. Otherwise, you can feel like you don't have that defined energy center. So even if it's in your own
Mm.
business and you love your business, if there's something that you're doing in your business that's not lighting you up, you have the capacity to be able to still do all the things that you need to do, even if you don't love them, as
Mhm.
long as you have things that do light you up. But a lot of times, what happens is that generative types, they kind of get they can get stuck sometimes when they're trying to move the needle forward, and they things can
Yeah.
move a little bit slower for the generative type versus the manifesting generator. The manifesting generator has this like very quick, fast moving energy because they both have that manifester as well as the generator. They function as a generator, but they still have some of that manifester energy. So they can kind of move things along pretty quickly. It doesn't mean that generators can't, but like a lot of times generators, they will kind of stop right before they finish the thing. That's like something that's
Mm.
one of the shadows, or just like human design has a frequency. That's what I love about it. It's never like this is a good human design type or these types are meant to be together. It's like there's always a high and low frequency within human design. And so, right, as a generator, you have high and low frequencies. As a manifester, I have high and low frequencies. But it's being able to be aware, right, of those frequencies. And are you in some of the shadow or the vulnerability, or are you in like that peak high frequency of it? And what I also
Got
love
it.
about it is that there's these little red flags that make it super easy for you to know whether you're really living according to your design or if you're not.
Hmm.
So what
Can
they
you go through, like, all of yeah, can you
yeah,
go through all of them, see what those red flags are?
yeah. So the only other thing is that sacral center, right? Some of the human design types don't have that sacral center. They don't have it
Mm.
colored in. So they don't have access to the same amount of life force energy that maybe the generator or the manifesting generator have. So that's reflectors, projectors, and manifestors. So they can oftentimes feel like they are just different, or they're tired, or they can't keep doing all the things that maybe some of those generative sacral types do. So one of the, that's like a shadow or a frequency, right? That we can just start to look at. Are we pushing, did we condition ourselves to function like the manifesting generator and the generator? And like, can you start to decondition any of that shadow or that vulnerability and start to honor who you really are? So, and then the other split that happened in human design was the solar plexus split and became two different into the spleen and into the solar plexus. So the spleen has a lot more to do with your instinct, primal intuition, gut knowing, And then, right, think about it, we evolved from just maybe that very reptilian, that very primal
Mm-hmm.
of like, I can go there, I can't go there. This is safe, this isn't safe. And we evolved. So the solar plexus split into this other center that was more based on emotions. So the solar plexus has all to do with emotions, whereas the spleen has a lot to do with instinct, intuition, primal knowing. And then there's also going to be another split that's going to be happening in 2026, 2027, because we're going through this huge evolution. So I think that's one of the
Oh,
things that I love about human design is that it just, to me, I love it because it does seem so applicable to very, like, I am very spiritual, very esoteric, very,
mm-hmm.
living out in other realms, but I am also super practical. And I like practical
Yeah.
tools that people can blend, they can
But,
really deepen into
mhm.
knowing who they are and why they incarnated here, but that they can also have practical tools of like, why do I tend to be somebody that's maybe very emotional, or why do I tend to be somebody
Mhm.
so like driven, or why do I have all this life force energy that I don't know, or a lot of times, certain clients, they have a defined head and they have a defined ajna, and they
Mm.
spend a lot of time thinking, and I think new age spirituality, self-help world might tell somebody, oh, like, just stop
Oh,
thinking, you come into your body,
yeah.
or use the power of your thinking. But what I love is that those clients get to see, oh wow, that's just an innate energy that I have inside of me to like to think. I like to think, I
Yeah.
like to postulate, I like to, just run my mind, but learning, then being able to how to use it for real, for good,
Yeah.
and being able.
So it's
I love it.
yeah, so I think once people find out what their type is it called type,
Yes, your type.
I guess?
Yep.
Oh, okay, my type. So once they find their type out, I guess one of the my impression, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, one of the ways that you can use it is to, yes, identify what your strengths are and the things that you're really comfortable with. And then where that shadow side is, you can kind of work with it when you are experiencing a moment of challenge or you're feeling stuck. Am I correct in
Yes,
thinking this?
yes. And there's a lot of, some people really resonate when they hear their human design because they maybe
Mm,
were nourished and nurtured to live from their actual design. And a lot of people I find have the opposite experience where they don't resonate with it. They don't feel like that's who they really are. Maybe their parents got the wrong birth time because they've been conditioned to function so far away from like who they really are. So what I love about it is then it gives you these little tools of where you can start to do the shadow work, where you can start to look at your vulnerabilities, where you can see maybe energy that you've taken on from other people or conditioning that's not really
mm,
yours, decondition it, and then start to then learn what is your innate energy, what is your energetic blueprint for being here, and like, why did your soul incarnate here? I mean, do you mind if I read your
no,
there?
I'm excited about it because I feel like I don't know, I felt like mine was wrong. Maybe I
You
put in the wrong
do?
numbers or
You
something.
do? Well, okay, so you
But so
asked a really good question. You said, what's like the first great place to start? I would say definitely
mhm,
with your type. When someone gets, whenever I do a reading, I usually do 90 minutes because I feel like it's a lot of information. And I also really like
mhm,
to teach people versus just giving them a handout and saying, this is who you are. I
that's
like to show
yeah,
people like, this is where you are the way you are, and this is why this arrow is pointing this way, or this sacral center is colored in, and what that means for you. So, and
mhm,
then I usually do a 30-minute follow-up session with people afterwards, about 4 weeks later, so that you can sit with everything, you can play with it, you can observe, like, how does that conditioning that you've experienced, or where does that deconditioning show up in your daily life? Being able to come back and ask questions. I really like, being able to embody the information versus just take it as a,
Take it up. Yeah.
an astrological reading or download or telling you what to do. And then I would say the next great place to start is looking at what is called your authority. So, your authority is how you're supposed to make decisions in your life. And a lot of people struggle with making decisions. And so
Decision.
yours is called the emotional authority. And so what that means is you have that solar plexus, that emotional center, you have that colored in. And so you might be somebody that feels a lot of emotions, and you might have a lot of emotions, and it might not even be connected to anything, which is what's so different than maybe a lot of self-help or like consciousness work, is that
Yeah.
you could have just not a bad mood in a morning, and it's not because of your bedtime routine or the quality of your sleep or how you are that day or what your day is going to be like, but you could just have a lot of different emotion that moves through you in any given day as you're trying to make any given decision. So it's like a great example of like emotional authority is I have a client who's a therapist, and they went through one of my programs and they were curious about signing up for the next program. And I knew that she was an emotional authority. And so she's like, I really want to do this next program. I'm excited. I want to get started with it. And I was like, let's just wait, right? Because emotional authority needs time to wait, because you're going to go through a lot of different emotions before you can really make a decision about something. You might have a lot of different feelings about something before you get clear on what your answer is. And usually for the emotional authority, she's like, I want to do it, but I don't want to do it. I want to have free time, but I want to do this. I feel like I want to integrate it, but I don't know if and she just kept going
I'm
through.
like, that's totally me.
Yeah. And so it's like
Yeah.
such an empowering tool as a coach and as a guide, because I said, listen, as much as I would love you to be in this next offering, you really need to wait. You need to wait a week.
Mm-hmm.
No pressure,
Yep.
and maybe you're
Yeah.
not going to sign up and I'm going to be disappointed, but I would rather be disappointed and know that you're following your true authority for making this decision versus making a decision that isn't right for you. And then you're going to feel the effects of that
Feel.
after you've made the decision. And then it's going to be a nightmare as you try to
Yeah.
change your mind,
Absolutely.
shift directions. So I would
Mm-hmm.
always say with the emotional authority is like really give yourself some time before you make decision. Pausing is great for emotional authority.
Oh yeah.
You may have
I've had to learn all this I've had to learn that the hard way, like over the course of time, right? It's like only I would probably say in the past 15 to 20 years have I just stopped and paused and given myself space and found the courage to tell people I'm not making a decision.
good for you.
But
Yeah,
that took a lot of work.
it does. Well, and the other thing that's interesting about your chart is that you also have a defined spleen. So you have
Mm.
this defined intuitive, probably like a lot of gut reactions, a lot of
Mm.
intuitive knowings about things because you have that defined energy. However, it's still important for you to wait, especially when you're making big decisions. You might still come to that same intuitive knowing that you initially had, but you really
Yeah.
have to honor this emotional wave that you're going to go through before you come to the answer. And a lot of times for emotional authorities, like it can feel very confusing because there's lots of different emotions. However, if you come to the thing that you consistently like come back to more often than not. So like the
Mm.
example of my client, she said that like even though she really wants to do this other offering and she wants to make the time and she's excited about it, And that came up a lot. She said the thing that like kept coming more often was that she just wanted some space in her schedule. And was she going to
Mm.
fill in the space with something else to do? And she's like, you know, what I really came to by following that emotional authority and taking a week to make the decision was that I really, really want that space. And I'm like, I feel like I've done my job as a coach. You are following your authority, you are standing up for what you want, you're creating space in your life, right? And she was able to use just some of the other energies from her chart to not have to do things the way that she's always done them. She was able to do them in a completely different way. So I would say, you know, the other types of ways of people making decisions are ego, which is the from the heart. So, like, does somebody have the willpower? Do they have the determination? Do they have the like this discipline to like go and do the thing?
Mm-hmm.
If they don't, it's probably not going to work out well. Or
Yeah.
another one is sacral authority. So a lot of times sacral authority is for people to just really tap into this energy like deep down in our sacral, and is it saying yes? Like, does it have a generative energy yes to it, or does it have a kind of a no, a stalled, a slow, like a not a
Mm.
like vibrating? Both
Mm-hmm.
of my kids have sacral, and so also too, what's really important for sacral is yes or no questions. When you ask someone with sacral authority open-ended questions, it can make them feel very overwhelmed because it's hard to get a yes or a no from an open-ended question. So for my kids, if I say, "What do you guys want to do today?" They just have no idea what to say. They get overwhelmed. But if I say, do you want to go to the beach? Do you want to go to camp? Do you want to go on a hike? Do you want to stay at home? Right? That's like super easy for them to say yes or no to that thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow.
yeah, there's splenic, which is like that intuitive knowing. Um, and then there's also self projected. So it's the only type that really they know the answer. I would say it's similar to maybe like claircognizance, but they have to hear
Mm.
themselves say it out loud in order to know the answer. They can't just
Oh.
quietly stay stuck inside of themselves. So again, like just from the decision making alone, there's so many
Mm-hmm.
nuances to it that again, when I'm coaching people, like somebody who has a self-projected authority for making decisions, I would tell that person whether they wanted to sign up for the offering or not, go for a walk, talk on your voice recorder, talk out loud to yourself, talk to a friend. You'll know exactly what you need to know as soon as you hear yourself say it. You know, the
Wow.
person that has the yes or no questions, like I will ask them yes or no questions, and then they'll be able to get to whether this is really a yes for them or it's a no. Um, and it's powerful because I think a lot of people feel really overwhelmed by making decisions, and there's so many decisions that we can make nowadays. It's just there's so many
There are
options for
so many.
people,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
So, and then,
Absolutely.
you know, after
Wow.
that, I would say the other thing that's really easy is your strategy. So, some people like you will have a strategy, which is how you're meant to really engage in life. Your
Mm-hmm.
strategy is to respond. So, you'll do really well when you are responding to something versus you just like cold call, download idea and try to put it out in the world, right? So let's
Mm-hmm.
say, for instance, you want to start an app. Well, you'll probably have more success with starting an app if you see somebody else's app and you're like, I could do that, but I could do it even better, you know? Or if
That's exactly what
you
I did.
see, yes. Versus the
Yeah.
other that it, like manifestors are really here to like initiate something new. So not
Mm-hmm.
responding. So they would not do well starting an app because they see somebody else starting an app or because they think they can do it better, that's them responding. So they're not going to have success if they do that. They need to kind of wait for something that's just naturally, organically unique and coming through them as a download. So again, the strategy, I would say, is another way that you can really tell whether you are on path for who you are and your energetic blueprint, or if you're off. So let's say, for instance, you started the app and things weren't moving and you kept meeting one obstacle after another. You could kind of track it back. And that's what I'll do with clients. I'll say, how did you first come to this? Like, how did you come to this? You know, I had a client that was wanting to go on a vacation and she's like, oh, well, I just, thought like, oh, we should go to Tulum. And I'm like, that sounds like an initiation versus responding. Right. So so I said, like, pull back from that and wait, maybe that gave you some clarity that you want to be on a beach or you want to be somewhere relaxing and you want to be somewhere spiritual, but like really wait to see something in your world that you can respond to and then go book the trip. So she did that and she ended up seeing, an ad somewhere for something else. And then as soon as she went to go book the trip, it was just like she got a discount on the trip and the flights were cheap and like, everything just worked out for her because she wasn't trying to initiate it. She was just responding to it.
Just responding.
And then, one of the ways that you can tell whether you're off or not is what's called your self theme and your not self theme. So when you, as a generator, your self theme is that you're going to feel satisfied. So when you're following that emotional authority, or you're following your generative type, or you're following your strategy to respond, a combination or any or all of them, you're going to tend to feel more satisfied in your life. You're just going to have this overwhelming like feeling of satisfaction. Versus when you're not following any combination or one of those things, you're going to feel frustration. And so when you feel frustration, that's kind of like a little red flag for you to look and say, did you follow the emotional authority? Did you follow your generative energy as a generative type? Did you follow responding versus initiating? And most of the time, you can kind of find something that maybe you didn't follow that emotional authority. And so that's leaving you really frustrated versus satisfied.
I'm thinking of some things now. Oh my God, no one's ever said that to me. Oh my gosh, I appreciate
And what I
that.
love is like, I find this to just be a really great exercise with human design is you can look at where in the times of your life that you felt frustrated. And then you can look at, okay, like how did you come to making the decision? How did you strategize and like respond versus, initiate or react or something? And like, are you following that? And I find doing like retrospective review to be really empowering because then that's where people can really see, oh my gosh, Gwen was right. Like, I do have that defined spleen. I did have that intuitive knowing, but I didn't totally follow the emotional wave. I just made the first decision. And like, oh, look, then I was like frustrated in this outcome or in the experience of it.
Yeah.
And I think that empowers people to say, oh, maybe next time when they're in a decision, they can say to themselves, oh my gosh, here I am again. I can feel this intuition of what I know I need to do, but I'm going to give myself time to wait. And then even before I respond, before I do something, I'm just going to make sure that I was responding to my intuition was responding to something versus like initiating something. So it's super fun.
It is so much fun, and literally, we probably could go days talking
Oh
about
my gosh,
this.
I know.
I have so many more questions, but I definitely honor your time. So can you share with us where people can find you, how they can learn more, how they can get their chart done? I mean, like all the jam.
Yes. So they can, those listening, if you're interested in human design, and I also too bridge breath work with the human design, because a lot
Mm,
of times when we find a place where someone has had a lot of conditioning, or let's say for instance like following that splenic knowing versus waiting for the emotional wave, we can do a shorter breath work to also breathe out where in the body, right, in the spleen, and where in, that solar plexus, maybe those energies have gotten mixed up, and like clearing that and letting that come
mhm.
out. So I do have one-on-one human design sessions. I also do a human design group. It's a group coaching. It's an embodiment. So they get a reading, and then they have an opportunity from week to week over the course of 8 weeks to really delve into not only their type, their centers, their gates, their channels, the planets. There's also these personal health system, which is like your food, your digestion, your environment, your exercise, your rituals, the way your brain works, how you manifest, like the ways that it's best for you to operate in your business. So we go over all those things. And then I find it really rich because they get to hear from other people, other types, other strategies, other, authorities, and they get to understand themselves better, but also I think too the people in their life. So both of those can be found on my website, and also they can connect on Instagram, and both are Gwen Dittmar.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. And I'll definitely share all of that in the show notes as well. Oh my goodness, Gwen, I just want to say thank you.
Too.
Not just
Can
thank
I
you
share with
for
you?
being on.
Can I share with you
Oh, yeah.
your soul, your incarnation cross?
Yeah. Yeah. Go for it,
Your
girl. Go
incar-
for it.
so your incarnation cross is your sun, your conscious and your unconscious sun, your conscious earth and your unconscious earth, right? So like your sun sign, as in an astrology of like who you are in the world, and like why you really came to earth and how to do that. So yours is called the right angle of rulership 3. And what it means is that your incarnation here is to make sense of the past and bring that into what you're doing in the here and now. Your life path might even bring events from the past to the present, so you can create a full picture, and you can let this full picture rule your world, whether that means leading others or whatever light passions light you up, because the past really comes into the present, and it helps others feel even more connected and attuned. So that's kind of just a summary of what your soul really incarnated here for. So I would say the
Mm,
incarnation cross definitely is like later on, but it's super fun to read it, because a lot of times
yeah.
people sit with it and they say like, yeah, that has been a lot of the storyline of my life. That's been a lot of like what has happened to me. Does that resonate for
Wow.
you?
It
Making sense
definitely
of the past
does.
and bringing it present
And bringing it present.
to
Wow.
like lead
Oh
and,
my
and
goodness.
help others.
Yeah, it's just as you were reading that, and I've shared this a lot. Um, just being back in Louisiana has brought up so much,
Mm,
and my ancestors have been talking to me way more than I do, and been really dropping into their messages and trusting my decisions. Um, and like you said, kind of sitting on them, and like as things happen, okay, I'm gonna step forward in this. And I have to say, over the past 8 months, the decisions that I've made have really been
mm,
about honoring the past of whatever that past may be, my ancestral past, my current past, and making and bringing the energy from that forward and taking it into my new work. And I mean, people may have seen things shift via social media, and a lot of that has to do with me trusting
Mm,
what has been coming up.
I love that.
And it's a reflection of my past, and I'm going with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But wow, and no
Powerful.
one's ever told me that. So what is it called again? Because now I have to like, well, I have. What am I talking about?
Well, if you
I'm
want to
like,
do a session, let me know. We can do a session. Oh, also too, when people do a one-on-one session, in addition to the initial and the follow-up, they get like a 15-page PDF that
oh
has
wow,
all of the information. So sometimes, individuals will really just want to sit with that for a while,
yeah,
make sense of it, just with it. Yeah,
definitely.
yeah,
Oh my gosh, I love it. Thank you for sharing that last little tidbit because all these were amazing. And some of it I've heard before, and then some of it I was like surprised about. That's why I was like, I don't feel like I've experienced a full, not even close to what you did. But having that last little piece definitely
yes,
was icing on the cake. So I appreciate it. I
yeah.
appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you, and have a wonderful day. And I think definitely need like a full reading without a
Yes,
doubt.
let's do it. I think so.
Absolutely.
And I will say too, what's also
Yes.
fun is to do it with your team. It can be really empowering to do it with
Oh,
your team because we tend to have a lot of, little idiosyncrasies about ourselves, and our teams end up seeing these
yeah.
things. And a lot of times they show up in the chart. And so it just lightens the whole experience of being on a team, who we are, who people see us as, and where our strengths and our weaknesses lie. And that a lot of times it's not something that we're
Mm,
trying to be difficult or
yeah.
challenging or non-collaborative. It's sometimes it just has a lot to do with our design, but then when we get to see it, like, it illuminates it, so it doesn't have as much power and it doesn't show up as much in the team. So that's also an option. Well, stay tuned.
Oh, yeah. I like that. I like that. I like that. Well, thank you again, and definitely have a wonderful rest. Happy new moon.
Thank you so much, and happy new moon. Bye for now.
Bye.